As you guys know, I'm a big Umamusume fan. I love this game. I've been playing it since it globally released now for quite some time. I do not like the community, to be fair. I do not like all the tourists. But here we go. So, Umamusume Localizers just got even worse. Here is something funny. If we're talking about, like, right, ruining and damaging the original visions of material and art and movies and shows and video games. Here's a funny one. I hate localizers. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. I hate localizers because they do not depict the original vision of creators. TV shows, movies, games. I hate them. They're the bottom of the bottom. They're the lowest of the lowest. Reason why? They switched out Happy Holidays for Merry Christmas. Now now you may think like that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal at all. Well, it would if it wasn't a big deal. First of all, why would you change it? Not only that, the characters literally say Merry Christmas. And they did it in the game, by the way, as well. So the localizers did not just strike the anime, they also struck the game. It gets worse though, because I've noticed that potentially every single piece of dubbed media in English that is from foreign places, in general, but specifically Japan, might not be what was originally envisioned. I've seen clips and comparisons between the Japanese version of Nier Automata, and I've seen the English, and I can tell these, if you would play them, they would be very different. They would be very different. And there's a good chance that most of the media you consume is probably not even like what was intended nowadays because of these idiots. They prioritize the narrative, just not the narrative. Yeah.
You may have heard about this situation last week where localizers were getting called out for changing the...
Also, apparently Cygames now is building basically a, what is it? Creating an AI company, which had the you retards very mad. Let's just say that was very funny to look at.
Align Merry Christmas in the Umamusume anime to Happy Holidays. And over the last 24 hours or so, a lot of people have been talking about another situation, this time in the Umamusume gacha game, where similarly the localizers are trying to erase any lines involving Merry Christmas. So we'll get right to the new stuff, but really quick, if you missed the initial scene.
And the question is, would you be okay if we did that with non-Christian holidays? Would you be okay if we did this with Muslim ones? Like, change Ramadan into fasting, like happy fasting, because you know there might be other you don't want to offend somebody, right? There might be other holidays or important events that might be include fasting. Who knows? If the answer is no, then I know what agenda you're trying to follow here. I know the answer. I know it. Then I know what you're actually trying to achieve.
Here you go. So yeah, you can clearly hear in the Japanese dub that they do use English there to say Merry Christmas, and this is because Christmas is very popular in Japan. You know, it's like another anime.
Yep, it's essentially like, so what Christmas is for us, technically for them is New Year's. It's like comparable. But they use Christmas to go do you know, have a nice time, cozy, you know, they celebrate it in a way that's kind of very much different, right? They use it for like the excuse to go go out with their partners, couple stuff, you know, they use it for that.
Where you hear the Japanese characters occasionally use English for certain things. For example, Oetsu in Bleach, when he talks about being the #1 Zanpakuto creator, you know, he says that part in English. Similar concept here, except directly related to Christmas, of course. And as mentioned, how culturally in Japan, they do enjoy celebrating Christmas. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. And there's also some people trying to defend what localizers are doing here and changing the IP, being like, oh, it's not a big deal. And it's like, yeah, okay, dude, if it's not a big deal, why did you change it to begin with? You can't you can't be the cause of this and change it. And then when people criticize you for that, suddenly it's not a big deal. You know, it's an extremely weak argument, just completely falls apart.
Because they changed it for a reason. They changed it for a reason. Because apparently anything related to Christianity is supposedly evil. Funny. Funny that you say that.
Instantly. The other argument that I've seen people defending this nonsense use is, well, the localization needs to make it more inclusive for the region. It's localized.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna straight up say it. I don't give a shit if it's more inclusive. I enjoy Japanese media because it is Japanese media. Give me the literal fucking translations. Thank you. Give it me word for word, bar for bar. I don't care if I don't get it. Then I'll just look up what it means and then I'll get it. I don't care. Just give me word for word, bar for bar. Like, I don't need Zoomer lingo in some European middle-aged based anime. I don't need millennial jokes. I want the what is actually being said. Like, I don't want somebody to say okay boomer. I don't want that. Leave it alone. Right? For example, Localizers did some weird shit, for example, with right, Gotenks, or was it Goten and Trunks in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero used Zoomer lingo, and I was like, what? You can't just put that there. Technically, these guys wouldn't have not even born during when we were around. What are you talking about?
Too. It's going to be better. You know, they're essentially saying that they improved it, which is also ridiculous. Look, this IP is already highly successful the way it is. They don't need
saying they improved it, right? The audacity of saying that you quote unquote improved somebody's original piece of media is crazy work to me. It's like the same people who turn an anime character like black and then say, look, I improved it. Worst part is sometimes they even like make them overweight and chubby, right? American chubby, not like chubby. And say like, oh, I improved it. The audacity is on sale, it seems.
Localizers to try to improve it, just translate the thing. And in this case, there was no translation needed. They quite literally said Merry Christmas. All they had to do was type in Merry Christmas in the subtitles, but apparently...
And then they're like, oh, you can't use AI to translate. You can't do that. What about our jobs? Well, if you did your job, AI wouldn't replace you. Get fucked.
That's too much for these localizers. And really quick side note, on a recent video that I made talking about issues with English voice actors, I had a very nice comment from a viewer asking me to look into localization stuff as well. And it seemed like that viewer wasn't familiar with how familiar I am with that topic. So for anyone who may not know, yes, I've been covering localization stuff for years. If I recall properly, I think the first videos I made on localization related issues was actually back in January of 2020. Anyways, we could keep going down that rabbit hole, but now with that context, let's return to the current news. And that brings us here to Umamusume once again, but this time, the gacha game, where we have Professor T posting, when people were talking about Cinderella Grey having that localization thing where they don't translate it as Christmas, it was annoying. But the Christmas event in the Umamusume game is
I think it's just, yeah, it's worse. It's worse. It is literally worse. It's worse. It is just worse, and I hate it. I hate it so much. So I'm so glad. Assuming that Umamusume Side Games implements AI, I hope they don't replace like art. I don't hope they replace artists and like gameplay stuff and anything. But you know what I do hope? I hope they replace the people translating. Holy fuck, I do. Get fucked. I don't care. Just get obliterated.
even worse. Santa Claus himself wishes Oguri Merry Christmas, and Christmas is said around 5 times just in the first scene, but it's translated as holiday. Oguri gets invited to a year-end holiday party. She remarks how it's the holiday season. Again, I can hear what Oguri is saying. Both of them are talking about Christmas specifically, but the subtitles can't reflect that. I'll post a recording of the scene later because it was upsetting me just reading it. And so Professor T did follow that up by saying, Umamusume localizers denying Ogre Cap and Santa Claus the Christmas spirit. With this 47-second long clip that we'll watch right now.
Merry Christmas, Ogre Cap!
Joyous Day instead of Merry Christmas. Santa Claus is literally saying, though, Merry Christmas. He's literally saying it. Like, it bugs me to hear something said and then it is not there. Like, it's not written out in the subtitles. But they literally say it. I hate that. I hate that so much. By the way, here's something funny, right? When we talk about localization, in the final scene, spoilers for those who haven't seen The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity, real quick. Spoilers. Run away. Here. In the sub, and in Japanese, Waguri declares her love for Rintaro, right? In the dub, not only does it sound absolutely horrendous, whoever picked that voice actor, fire the person. That voice actress doesn't work for that. In the dub, she says that she really, really likes him. Not love. Likes him. And you know how I know that they actively fucked that up? Well, they didn't actively fuck it up, but they very much fucked it up. Because in the German dub, she confesses her love to Rintaro. Not, I really, really like you. I hate that. I hate that.
Santa-san, konnichiwa. そうか、もうクリスマスの時期なんだな。
君宛てにメッセージカードとプレゼントを預かっているぞ。それじゃ、良いクリスマスを。
Would they change it then? Right? Everything? Have a merry one. That's funny. It's like also funny, right? Would you change like the word Christmas tree to holiday tree? Would you change Christmas present to holiday present? Would you change all of those too? Like, listen how stupid it is to say, yo, I have to decorate my holiday tree. Motherfuckers.
お、ありがとう。大変なお仕事だと思うが、応援しているぞ。さて、オグリキャップ様はクリスマスパーティーへのご案内状。ファン一同よりクリスマスパーティー。
So as you can see, it looks like Professor T added some edits to that with the translations and the zooms and all that, the meme sound effects. But I mean, that's excuse me, that clip is actually crazy. There's so many examples of Merry Christmas being said there, literally verbatim. But then they localize it as Happy Holidays. There's no Christmas celebrations here, guys. Trust. And then like taking it even further, and this is,
And they're like, oh, this isn't happening at all. A viewer of mine who does his job right, apparently has to say Happy Holiday to be more inclusive. I don't want to be inclusive anymore. I want to be exclusive. I want to actively exclude people from spaces. That's what I want to do. I am gatekeeping. I feel like gatekeeping seems to be my true calling.
why I'm laughing and having a hard time like not laughing as I speak right now. The literal song in the background is all like Merry Christmas, and then the localizers are like holidays. Like, bro, come on. That is just ridiculous on so many levels. There does seem to be one issue with Professor T's translations, as pointed out by Vane here, but this, of course, doesn't change anything related to localizers removing Merry Christmas. And the localizers removing Merry Christmas doesn't stop there either, as on the main sub for the Umamusume gacha game, we would have this post titled, "The word Christmas is replaced with holiday." And we seem to have some voice lines here where, as you might expect in Japanese, they are saying Merry Christmas, but the English localization here decided to put the English text as holidays. In particular, look at the second.
I'm gonna crash out. I'm gonna crash out. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? The holidays? That could mean, by the way, anything. That could mean Easter. That could mean something in summer. Sometimes holidays are replacement just for right? Kids not going to school. It could be anything. And since it could be anything, it's just crazy.
Area here where they say the holidays and Valentine's Day with New Year's sandwiched in between. Winter in Japan is full of parties to enjoy. But here's what's actually said.
クリスマスにバレンタイン、その間はお正月。日本の冬、パーティーいっぱいで楽しいで。
Only 23 hours ago, and we can also see this post made on the Umamusume game subreddit titled Christmas Ogre Mistranslated or Game as a Whole, saying specifically, I know this is going to stir up the bee's nest a little, but after noticing the blatant change of Merry Christmas to 'Tis the Season on Christmas Ogre's animation, as well as the whole discussion of JP to international translation at large, I'm wondering how much else we're actually missing in translated context. I remember back in the 80s and 90s where the Japanese were very cautious when it came to bringing in-depth games.
Interesting. Funny.
Particularly RPGs, to the West due to cultural differences. But that ship has long sailed, in my opinion. I'm not a native speaker nor fluent basic level, so I'm curious as to what else has been missed from those of you who can actually fully understand the audio. Is there already a chain on here regarding this? P.S. I have reported the mistranslation as a bug in case this was not intentional by CY Games. Top responses such as, I've noticed small bits and pieces that are strangely localized. I admit I got a kick out of the first episode of the event story where the subtitles say Happy Holidays while Oguri literally says Merry Christmas in English. The user saying, or the OP, excuse me, saying, I mean, if it's obvious, why bother? And another comment here saying, I think rather than classifying this as a mistranslation, I think it's just a localization choice. It sounds like the localization is trying to avoid saying Merry Christmas due to the multitude of winter holidays different groups in different places celebrate, but it comes at the cost of awkwardness as all the gameplay is so blatantly Christmas themed. And the OP saying, I agree with your assessment, awkward AF. And lastly, this comment saying, it is a choice, although a disappointing one in my opinion.
It is weird, in my opinion, to actively go out of your way to replace Christmas with Happy Holidays. It is an oddity, in my opinion. I do not understand what their mission was. Well, I do understand what their mission was, right? It was to eradicate Christmas. But, yeah. How is Christmas even offensive? How is that even offensive? Weird as shit.
Everyone calls her Christmas Ogre. The intent of the design is very clearly to make her Christmas themed. Even in Japan, where most people aren't Christians, they have no issue calling it Christmas, while they celebrate the pageantry of the holiday. This localization also showed up on the final episode of the second season of Cinderella Grey.
Because Japanese aren't liberal shitheads. They aren't offended by that. Right? They enjoy the celebration. They enjoy Christmas. Their way, obviously. They're not offended by this.
Where the characters clearly say Christmas, and a banner also says Christmas, but the localized translation says Happy Holidays or something. I don't know if this was a decision by CY Games or by whatever team translated the text/voice lines, but it's a pretty clear effort to make it as inoffensive or neutral translation, probably driven by either the localization team or an effort by CY Games to avoid the ire of people who don't like the idea of a religious holiday being overtly featured in the game they play, however ubiquitous it might be in real life. This is the exact sort of thing people take umbrage with regarding like performative activism. So they changed the subtitles, but as these people point out, the characters still say Merry Christmas. It even says on this banner, Merry Christmas. So the people that would hypothetically be offended are still going to be offended anyways, even though the localizers try to change it for that reason, if that is the reason. Now, some people would speculate.
Not only that, they would still be offended because she literally says in the event, Merry Christmas, 5 times. That whatever the point was, mission failed. Mission failed successfully.
That the localizers themselves might be politically motivated, and we don't know for sure if that is or isn't the case in this specific context. However, given that we have years worth of evidence of localizers being politically motivated in the way that they go about their localizations, it is not unreasonable for people to presume that such things might be occurring here with Umamusume as well, unfortunately. For example, NISA localizers were literally on record talking about how they will change certain jokes from the original Japanese context in their localized versions in English because they personally find those jokes to be offensive. Now, their job isn't to change things based on their own personal beliefs or their political.
Their job is to translate what is there. Their job is to give me the translated version of the source material, not their own version. And again, if AI replaces them, I will not shed a tear. Goodbye, bro. Goodbye. Did it to yourself.
Viewpoints, what offends them or may not offend them. No, they are simply supposed to adapt the original IP to fit as accurately as possible based on the original context to the region it is being localized to. Now, even that level of localization would be criticized by many, as many people say even that's unnecessary. Just translate the dang thing. And if there's a line or a joke or something that we don't understand because the translation ends up being very clunky, because it's like, you know, a joke that makes sense in Japanese but doesn't really translate well to English, excuse me, it doesn't matter because we all understand that that's what's going on. Like, oh, it probably just didn't translate well. Whatever, it's fine. It's actually part of the appeal for a lot of people because we appreciate these cultural differences. And that exact approach is what worked for Japanese companies for decades. Like, initially, the proliferation of Japanese IP becoming popular here in the West was when they didn't try so hard to appeal to the so-called global audience or modern audience. On the
Global homo ruining everything it touches. Classic.
inverse, if you take a look at Square Enix, who for over a decade now attempted to appeal to this broader modern audience.
They're bleeding money. They're having layoffs. Their peak Final Fantasy VII, a remake of that isn't selling well. I wonder why.
And trying to appeal to Westerners. Well, what did that get them? It got them less sales and it ruined their own intellectual property. They lost a ton of goodwill. A lot of people who used to love some of Square's IP, and to be fair to them, they did make some of the most iconic Japanese IP out there. Well, they've ruined that for a lot of people because they tried so hard to appeal to this modern global audience that it actually had the opposite effect, and it made people no longer interested in the IP. Now, Square doubled down on this for years and years and years, but recently, over the last few months, it seems like they finally realized this was a giant mistake, and they've begun to lay off around, I think, 100 or 200 different Western staff members. Anyways, circling this all back to CY Games and Umamusume, we don't know for sure if these localizers are working entirely on their own free will, or if they're having some direction from CY Games to pursue this sort of just terrible localization style. So, look, either option's bad. Either they made the mistake, because I think their localization team is in-house. So they either made the mistake of hiring the wrong people and bringing them to
Either the wrong people, or it was genuinely their fucking decision. If it was, yeah, we're going down the bad path already.
their in-house team, or they're under the false misconception that ordering their localization team to localize stuff in this manner is a wise idea. It certainly isn't. Now, again, I don't know for sure what's going on there. I don't have inside info on this company. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But whatever the case may be, it's not good. And hopefully they realize that to be the case and they don't go further down this road and don't run into issues like this in the future either. But we'll have to see how that all plays out. Let me know what you think about this topic in the comments. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you.
Simplified, protect your hunts, girl. Protect your hunts, girls. Protect your horses, because these fuckers will ruin your horses. Protect them at all costs. Gatekeep the game, and beat out the localizers if that's the case, right? We already lost Brown Dust 2 to censorship. We're gonna lose Umamusume to bad localization. Yeah, I'm nah. Nope. Anyways, guys, like, comment, and subscribe, and protect your hunts.